Well, in business news, the West African Regional Stock Exchange was the top performing exchange in Africa in 2015. In New York, Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino is with CEO Edoh Amenounve to discuss the current economic state of the continent and how the exchange is attracting U.S. and Western investment.
The West African Regional Stock Exchange was the best performing exchange in Africa in 2015. Explain to us why it's been so successful.
Thank you. I think that there is three main reasons for that. The first one is the integration of our region. The BRVM is the only integrated stock exchange in the world, shared by many countries. The second reason, I think, is the performance of the economies of our state members during the last 5 to 3 years. The average GDP growth of the Union is about 6%, and we have in Ivory Coast and GDP growth about 9%. Right. So I think that this economic performance was favorable to the stock exchange. The last reason is the monetary stability of our Union. You know that the CFA is pegged to euro, so it's like a kind of protection for investment in our region.
What about weaning off of commodity dependency, though, because there has been a lot of growth and it lends to the GDP, but there's also a global slowdown in crude oil prices. Where else can the economy grow?
You know that the African countries, especially the Francophone countries in the West African Monetary Union, are not dependent on oil. We are most importers than exporters of oil, if we take the case of all these Francophone countries. So we are not affected by the decline in the oil price. Right. And one of the most important material we export also is the cocoa. You know that Ivory Coast is the first producer of cocoa in the world. So the price of cocoa is doing well during these last years, and this benefits to the Ivorian economy. Right. So we don't have the same effect of the decline in the oil price, in the raw material demand, in the demand coming from emerging countries like China, right, as we can have it in Nigeria, in Kenya, Angola, and so on.
I think having the currency stable, yes, is key as well, because we've seen the Nigerians suffering with the Naira, where it doesn't hold much value, so being pegged to the euro certainly has to lend to some credibility as well.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Yes.
How has the American investor responded to it? Are you seeing investment coming in through the Americans?
Yes, you know, on the BRVM, the first group of international investors is Americans. They account for 30% of the value traded in our market by foreign investors. That is very important. So we have a kind of dialogue with them to, first of all, update the information on the macroeconomic of our region. We also give them some information on what is going on the stock exchange and what are the outlook and the pipeline of IPO for the next years. We see a lot of interest, but they have some questions on 2 to 3 very important points for them. Right. The first one is the transparency of the market. They need more transparency in IPOs and so on. They also need to have more information disclosed by the listed companies, and we give them an assurance that we'll work on that very, very quickly. And finally, they need also to have more liquidity in our market. Right. They expect that the BRVM will increase the liquidity during the next years. So we are working on that. I think that was a very important point. And as stock exchange, we have to quickly handle these points and propose some solution to international investors.
Right. Well, that's something you can control too. You can't control economic growth, but you can certainly add liquidity. You can certainly make your issues more transparent. So the growth for the exchange is certainly there.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in New York today.
Thank you very much.
For the Voice of America in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino.